We have to have a presentation of the gospel, but we also have to have presence of Almighty God working with us.
Jason, tell me the hat story. I've heard a little bit about this hat story with John Wimber.
The hat story, I don't know how many times he did it. I think I only saw it once. It was referenced a lot, and others could probably tell you different. But the time I saw it, I think it was the 94 songwriter meeting at the Anaheim Vineyard here. And so John, to make it clear so that people understood where he was coming from, because we had all these different entities that were kind of living together but operating independently. So John, said, I have 3 hats. And he put 3 hats on the table. And he said, I'm the Anaheim Vineyard senior pastor. Like when I have that hat on, I'm only concerned with what's good for the Anaheim Vineyard. And then he said, then I'm also I don't know if they had a name for it. It wasn't national director, I don't recall, but he was the head of the vineyard. Mm-hmm. In the U.S. and many other countries, I think at that stage, Canada and the U.K. were separate, or had become their own. But he had that hat, the national director. Now I'm thinking about what is good for the vineyard in the USA, or whatever parts he represented. And then he had the VMI hat, which was Vineyard Ministries International. Later became Vineyard Music, was part of that same entity, and that was kind of the ministry arm. And Church Renewal, everything kind of went under there. So when he would talk, he would put on the hat, like, I'm talking as the Anaheim Vineyard pastor now. And his answers would be different. And it was really great because he could give different answers and be honest and be sincere about each answer based on which hat he was wearing. And I appreciated that because he didn't sidestep it or try to do both. He's like, no, I'm talking as the pastor right now. This is not good for, the Anaheim Vineyard.
Wow.
And, we'd be waiting. Oh, was he going to put because I worked for VMI, got the VMI hat on now, represent,
Yeah.
So.
Did he literally have hats?
Yes, he had 3 hats.
Wow.
That time. I've heard him reference the hats.
Yeah.
I wear different hats. At this meeting, he put 3 hats on the table, just to be clear.
That's genius.
Who he was speaking on behalf of. And so
there was no confusion.
Yeah.
What kind of hats were they?
I don't remember it. They were baseball caps,
okay.
But like
certain teams?
No, they were probably like bad vineyard with grapes or something.
Oh.
There might have been a new breed hat, which was I don't know. I don't totally recall that, and unfortunately we didn't have video back then, or not the way to do video.
It's like a time travel.
Yeah. I think I do have audio of it though. But,
amazing. Well, this has been really fascinating, to hear your story with Wimber. I'm kind of curious. So it's like, we are, we're 2023, like I was saying, and why do you think that John Wimber's ministry, his legacy, part of the reason why I do these Wednesdays with Wimber is try to expose people to, modern day people to Wimber. Why do you think his ministry still matters today? Because I'm not a pastor or anything, I think my perception is my sphere and my personal life. And for me, the biggest thing that I learned and through John's ministry that impacted me was partly the now and the not yet, or however you want to talk about it, but like this sense of moving towards the kingdom and what it looks like to have new life, and that seeing humanity in that lens, that people are moving from death to life, and so not neglecting the care that is needed at the moment. So like in my current job, in the current sphere that I'm in, I have people that are really hurting, and they're not ready to make some leap to, they're not ready to attend church. Church probably wouldn't accept them. There are very few churches would. So, but just to be able to take baby steps towards the kingdom and experience new life. And I think that element, I still see that as so vital, in that was the big takeaway for me through you know, my first 10 years in the vineyard, that was kind of the thing that kind of imprinted on me. I wasn't, personally, it wasn't the prophetic or all these other things. Those were all impactful, and I want all those things in my life. But it was really the practical stuff, seeing the food bank, feeding the poor, and just caring for people, treating people like humans. That's what I liked, that John let, it wasn't pretty at Anaheim always. And I like that John's like, some people are sicker than you and me. Like, we don't know where people are at. And he didn't discourage. He knew that some of the things that went on were maybe just weird or not God. Mm-hmm. But he didn't shut it down. He's like, I don't know. Like, I love that he didn't have the fear, everything's going to fall apart if he missed something and something happened that turned out not to be God. Now, if people are being harmed, he was always protective of that. So I think, but I like that the church doesn't have to be embarrassed. We might do some weird stuff. Sorry, and it's okay. And God doesn't need us to uphold this perfect image. We don't need to look a certain way. We don't need to emulate behaviors. And I like that. I felt like John really did a great job of not perpetuating this image on stage. The nameless and faceless. Was that ever true or not? I don't know. But, that really was part of it. It was nameless and faceless. There was no... didn't have to look a certain way. You didn't have to do certain movements. Didn't have to do certain chord progressions. It was more natural, and I think that's the danger. I don't know. Sometimes I get afraid of this danger of people are stargazing at the stage again, and it's that side of it for me was amazing because there was great music. I mean, the people on stage were great, but there was no cult of personality, and there wasn't something to be attained. It wasn't something to be attained to be on stage. That wasn't anything better than the person in the seat. I think that side of it, that it's a level playing ground for everyone in the church, is huge, and is a message that still needs to get out there, or needs to continue to cultivate and flourish.
It seems really relevant for today's, especially with all the social media and the the different ways to build your platform, and an irony being we have a YouTube channel right now.
Well, I mean, I look at my time there, and there was, when other things emerged, it was like, why aren't you that? Why aren't you that? And the reality is, maybe it wasn't like we didn't want to be. There was a time when it was like you said, Vineyard, and it was there was one name. When EMI signed us, there wasn't anything else. There was nothing like us. EMI signed us and then built worship together on that, on our, they coupled everything with us, but it wasn't cool to be worship. It wasn't something to be attained, but when the industry found out that there was a lot of money, then it became a very effective machine. The record industry is very good at selling records or promoting things.
And identifying cash flow.
And so they built that, but they didn't understand, lack of image was okay. That wasn't okay for a marketing person in a record company. Because it wasn't like church people that were marketing these records. They were record executives.
And that's why you, that's one of the things that really matters today.
And I see some of the, for me, I admire John that he stayed humble, and we see things happening today, and I'm like, wow, this has really gone sideways. These things that everyone was like, we're going there, this is what we want to be, and it's kind of gone sideways, and I don't think that ever happened with John, and that's great. You know.
Well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to end with this, because you you embody a lot of those same things. That's why I was just sharing. We were just talking about earlier. You and I were friends for a number of years, and I had no idea that you ran Vineyard Music. Like I had no idea. I think we had been hanging out for a couple of years, and I was like, hey, like, are you like a Vineyard pastor? So just you've always carried yourself in that way too, where super humble, not I don't know. I just really thought that was cool because I was like, I just spent like the last few years hanging out with this dude who would hang out. We would hang out. We would go do things, and it was just really cool. So appreciate your time, man.
All right, thank you.
We have to have a presentation of the gospel, but we also have to have presence of Almighty God working with us.